for us to have to look at, but it just helps us guide us through our conversations with each other over the next hour here. So what I'm going to do, hopefully everybody can see that okay. Yeah, somebody want to give me a thumbs up and let me know we're all good. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Excellent. So the first thing we're going to look at just today is, what is self-esteem? Does somebody want to tell me just what they believe self-esteem to be? Again, like confidence, what are we working with here? What are we thinking about when we talk about self-esteem? Somebody want to come off and give me a little, their own view? Who's going to be bold enough? Let's see. What is self-esteem?
How you feel about yourself.
How you feel about yourself. Good, we're kind of there, okay? I'll not labor this too long, but self-esteem is how we value and perceive ourselves. It's based on our opinions and our beliefs about ourselves. Now, sometimes our self-esteem, of course, unfortunately, gets based on opinions and beliefs that other people have about us. But essentially, our own self-esteem is about we believe in ourselves. And we can sometimes find this really difficult to change, because self-esteem affects not only what we think, but it also affects everything that we do and how we behave and how we feel. And it has significant ramifications for our happiness, our enjoyment, and indeed, importantly, life. It considerably affects everything around us, our relationships, our work, our goals, our children, our families, okay? And although difficult events do come to us all, I know that some of us will have breakups, some of us will have illness, some of us will have lost income. In the short term, self-esteem, most of us rebound. We find positive things about ourselves or about our future. And we seem to then be able to start building our self-esteem again, a little bit like our confidence. Self-esteem is not something that is rigid. It's always something that's changing. The external things around us, honestly, whether we make mistakes, whether or not we do well, all of these things are constantly ebbing and flowing, exactly like our confidence, okay? Your self-esteem can affect whether you like or value yourself as a person, okay? It can depend whether you're able to make decisions and assert yourself. Importantly, one of the things we'll talk about, self-esteem is about recognizing your strengths and indeed your weaknesses, okay? For me, self-esteem can be how you reflect your kindness, your empathy, and your time spent with other people. So it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. For me, building self-esteem was about unlearning what I had learned about myself. I went back to self-school and learned all about me. Unfortunately, one of the things that whenever I come through our education systems is, yes, school and education is about exploration. But sometimes it's not about that exploration about yourself. It's about exploration of history, of science, of subject, and other such things. And importantly for me, what I had to do and what I'm asking you to do and think about today is come back to that self-school, that lifelong learning, not in education, but lifelong learning, indeed, just about yourself. I'll use these two words interchangeably today, healthy versus impaired self-esteem. I prefer to use these terms, healthy and impaired, rather than high or low, because for me, dare I say, because narcissists and conceited individuals appear to have high self-esteem, but actually they don't, okay? High self-esteem, I just pull those two people out, you know they are. Narcissists are conceited individuals, have high self-esteem, but they actually don't have healthy self-esteem. Theirs are inflated and it compensates for things such as insecurities or often that unrelated reality that some of these people have. So healthy self-esteem requires that we are able to be honest, realistic, we have to assess both our strengths and our weaknesses. We're not concerned about the others people and what their opinions of us are. We accept, and I'm just working on a course at the moment with a group from USDA, the union. We're talking about this thing of acceptance. Healthy self-esteem is about accepting our flaws without judgment. Our self-acceptance is important for healthy self-esteem. So be careful not to fall into that trap of using the words high and low. Okay, I want you to reflect just briefly on healthy. And healthy means being able to be realistic of your strengths and weaknesses, to accept yourself for who you are and not judge yourself. And that's much different to having high self-esteem. As I've pointed out to you, there's people who have high self-esteem, but it's unrealistic. That's what we call impaired self-esteem. Okay. A couple of things I want to just note for you today. Why is self-esteem important? You know, what is then some of the things I would ask people to think about if you're having impaired or certainly not healthy self-esteem? And I want you to reflect on some of these things as I just mentioned them today. You know, do you act assertively without experiencing any guilt and feel at ease with communicating with others? Do you avoid dwelling on the past and focus on the present moment? Are you somebody who often gets caught up in the past? Or can you well able to focus on the present? Do you believe you're equal to everyone else? You're no better, no worse than anybody else. You work with people as their equals. Do you reject the attempts of others to manipulate you? Do you recognize and accept a wide range of feelings, both positive and indeed negative? Do you enjoy a healthy work balance, play and relaxation? Some of the things, maybe, do you accept challenges? Do you handle criticism well? Do you value yourself and communicate well with others? And importantly, do you value others and accept them as they are without trying to change them? Indeed, if you can answer yes to all of these questions or most of these questions, then for me, you have a healthy self-esteem. If unfortunately you're struggling today to think actually, well, most of those things I don't do, or actually most of those things I work against, then there may be impaired self-esteem in its place. Okay. What are some of the manifestations? How does it look? What does impaired self-esteem look like? A great little diagram here. Again, some of you may take some pieces of this away with you today. These are like what I would call early warning signs about the way in which you are approaching life. Are you a people pleaser? Always? Are you always trying to please other people? Are you easily angered or irritated? You feel maybe that your opinion today isn't something that's important to other people. You doubt your decisions. You maybe struggle with confidence. This is a big one for me, and especially in the workplace. You maybe struggle to say no, even though you're already overwhelmed with work. Maybe you're already having difficulties from overworking and not getting time to have that life balance, but you still struggle to say no, and you take on all of that work. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on in our workshop week 4. Maybe you try to avoid taking risks. Maybe there's new things you want to try in life, but simply can't, or you feel that you can't. And this is a big one for me. You give more attention to your weaknesses. Where do we learn that? Where do we learn that process or journey, do you think, to give more attention to our weaknesses? Where does that start? Anybody have kids? Think about where does this attention, where do we actually start to impair our own self-esteem? When we begin this journey. Go on ahead, yeah.
Childhood.
Childhood. And yeah. Who's responsible for doing this?
Parents.
Parents.
Grandparents.
Grandparents. I had little online teacher meeting this week for my youngest, who's 8. And of course, if you're a parent, you'll know how difficult it is with online meetings now. You just get your 8-minute slot and you disappear. But I always challenge this one thing when I speak to all of the teachers with my kids is, thanks for giving me so much attention to what their weaknesses are. What are the things they need to work on? What are the things they need to get better at? But can I ask you, could you give me some focus on what my kids' strengths are? What have they done really well? What are they excelling at? See, this is where we begin this impaired self-esteem, is in childhood. Because most of the things we're taught to work hard at, most of the times the things that we need to have another child and he's at home and I need to work hard in my history because my exam results poor. And yes, there may be a little bit of, you know what, it could be laziness, but there also could be well, why are we not doubling down, spending time on your strengths? I'm not saying, of course, listen, through acceptance, we don't leave all of our weaknesses to bear. We do have to work on them, but we have to make sure we give attention to our strengths. So again, this thing of impaired self-esteem begins at childhood, it begins in school, where we start this attention to weakness. And that leads to pessimism and negativity, because weaknesses are things that we can work on. They're like skills and we'll get better over time. But we need to make sure we don't do this at the demise of our strengths. So there's a full list of things. Again, I'm not pointing at anybody today, but are these some things that we're struggling with? Are these things that we do? Then I want you to think that these are indeed the manifestations from early life of impaired self-esteem. I want to give you hope today because, as I said earlier, the mechanic repaired self-esteem. How do we move from impaired to repairing our self-esteem? And again, then this starts to come out. Listen, we're not going this in great depth. I'll share all of this stuff with you. So I'm always happy to share everything that I have. As I said, all the information I have and I learned over my years doing this for myself belongs to the universe. It's all out there, and I'm more than happy to share all of this with you. But what happens over a period of time with these impaired self-esteem manifestations is they then become emotional behavior. They then become actions. They impact adversely on us all, okay? On our relationships, on our work, on our life. We criticize ourselves, we compare ourselves to others, and these insecurities start to build. We become anxious. Some of us then struggle to trust people. We deflect or distrust, even whenever people are trying to say we're doing well and we're good people and we're doing our best. We then begin to lack self-worth and value. You can see these things coming out here, folks. These are the corner blocks of building self-esteem. See these words like value, feelings, judgment, over-reliance on other people. We need others to guide us and to give approval, this verification. In life, again, that starts in childhood, where if we're going to do something new, if we're going to push boundaries, if we're going to take risks and have that life that we want, we need others to guide, but importantly then we need others to approve or verify these things, okay? And that grows with us in life, this impaired self-esteem, that we need this verification or approval from other people. And I sometimes have a laugh, it's in our workplace as well, okay? It's everywhere we go, it follows us. And then that leads to unhappy relationships with people, the self-judgment or self-loathing, where we basically fall out of love with ourselves. And what we do is we don't fall out of love with ourselves. We fall out of this working knowledge of who we are. We actually don't know ourselves. And that's one of the things that we have to get right. So how then do we, just on the flip side then, how do we display healthy self-esteem? What does a person look like, or what do they do to show that they're displaying healthy self-esteem? See, knowing your value, knowing you have value, and I said this to you all last week, you all have intrinsic value. Some of you maybe know it and haven't been able to use it. Some of you don't know it and can't use it. And for some people, I know maybe last week, that was the first time where somebody said, you matter, you have value, you have worth. Healthy self-esteem is about knowing that value, no matter what environment you're put in. You know you feel competent and confident. Again, these things come interchangeably. You're honest, you've got integrity. Again, these are values that we all grow up wanting. We want to be honest. We need honesty. We like integrity. And again, sometimes we move away from those values in life. So again, if we're doing those things, we're showing or displaying healthy self-esteem. We have internal control. Okay, maybe through diet or exercise, or maybe one too many glasses of vino at the weekend and we wish we had less. But again, we have this certain inner control over things. We accept attention, we accept praise. It's part of having good, healthy self-esteem. We're pursuing some self-efficient goals. We have some self-respect, compassion, optimism, assertive, and importantly, we are accepting of other people doing well. We like to see people do well. And again, this isn't an extensive list, folks, but these are things for me whenever I was reflecting on my journey, going, you know, I am failing to do any of these, or I'm maybe only doing some of these. So I had more things where I had impaired self-esteem. I was doing things, I was doing actions, I was having feelings and thoughts that manifested more in impaired self-esteem than the things here, which again shows this little bit more of what does a person who's displaying healthy self-esteem, what would they be doing? There's some factors, and again, I just want to highlight these with you today. There are some factors that affect our self-esteem. When we are children, we're still developing into our personalities. We're trying to figure out who we truly are. Because of this, we also tend to look around us and try and gauge how we should act and if we're fitting in. And all of this has a huge impact on our self-esteem. For example, did your parents that give you praise, or were they constantly critical of you? Did you have good teachers or coaches that supported you? Did your parents' role model have and support a healthy self-esteem for themselves? Sometimes growing up in that dysfunctional family can lead to what I call codependency as an adult. It weakens your self-esteem in later life because you're reliant on your parents. Does anybody know what age a child stops becoming reliant on their parents? Or should stop relying on their parents at?
15?
15 is not far away. Somewhere between 12 and 14 is when a child is genetically formed enough not to be codependent on their parents anymore. There's always this rough joke. Some people say to me, girls grow up at the age of 16, men grow up at the age of 45. It's a little bit of tongue in cheek, of course, but this codependency is something that weakens our own self-esteem. Often you don't have that voice. Your opinion, your desires aren't taken seriously. Parents usually have low self-esteem and sometimes are unhappy with each other, and they themselves neither have nor can be good role models sometimes in fostering the ingredients for healthy self-esteem. Maybe some kids grew up feeling insecure or anxious or angry, and as a result, they feel emotionally abandoned and conclude that it's all their fault. Okay. And again, I'm not saying that any of you today that's what happened, but I'm just resonating some of that in your mind to say, listen, some of why you may have impaired self-esteem is because of growing up either codependent on your parents or with low self-esteem. And what tends to happen is you learn to hide your feelings. You walk on eggshells, you withdraw, or you try to please or become the aggressor sometimes. And this reflects just how our factors, home and child life has a big role to play on our self-esteem. Society, every day we are anointed with these lovely messages, or sometimes not so nice messages about who and what you should be. and what those around you should say to people, what pressures you should apply. And that's a major contributing factor to our self-esteem. There are many unrealistic expectations that society puts on us. Today, I seen an interesting article written yesterday on International Women's Day. It was a great article, and what it mentioned was women are now under so much pressure because of society to be a good mom, to be a good role model, to have a great full-time job, to have a career, to run a home, to do all of those things. And it's hard to then do well or see yourself as achieving in all those things when your energy is so spread out. There are many unrealistic expectations that society puts on us all. And if you were at home during COVID, God bless you, had to become a full-time teacher. If you had kids as well, and a full-time fitness instructor, and a full-time chef, and you're expected to bake banana bread even though you maybe hadn't baked in your life. Society has those things that ask us, do you like your job? What point are you at in life? When should you be married? When should you have kids? What kind of clothes you should wear? How much money you should have, and all of that stuff. If you like other people's rules and expectations that dictate who you are and how you should live your life, then you will always suffer from impaired self-esteem, because it will take you away from who you are. You know best when it comes to knowing what is the right thing for you. So make sure your expectations for yourself are realistic and healthy, and not based on what society is asking of us to do. We then have this other lovely child called the media. And listen, every picture we see on social media today, every TV show and movie, you watch Netflix and read articles either for fun or because you want to know what's going on in the world. We're being constantly bombarded with advertisements everywhere you go. Have you ever stopped to think about what these messages are conveying to us? Most of these sneaky advertisements are getting those subliminal messages to you that you are inadequate. And the way to feel better, or the way to do better, is to purchase this product, to put on this lipstick, to get your hair done this way, to have these trainers, to be able to run like Ronaldo. I think what those products are saying, that you're not good enough, but take this product. But here's a great example. I love this. If you can see it in the background, it's a typical ad for women. It's for Dove, and it shows a happy, attractive woman having a good time here, okay, smiling, okay. I love this because it pushed back against all of the other beauty companies. It understated and put out a real women's message, okay, different sizes, different age, different ethnicities. You don't often see that in the world we live in, especially from media and advertising. So moving forward, start looking at advertisements through a different lens. Remind yourself that people in ads are models. It's their gig, it's their profession, it's what they do. Think about the fact that they have maybe had to sit all day on Saturday in a makeup chair for hours and be photoshopped extensively. So please, please don't compare yourself to these make-believe images, whether it's male or indeed female. I've always grown up, people say, but Ed, you need a six-pack. I'm 40 this year. I've done my life. I've never had a six-pack in my life. But I see young people playing into this, boys, but to be attractive and, you know, for girls to want me and to be picked on the rugby team, I need a six-pack. Why? Because advertising portrays machismo and everything else as having this. So just think about what that's doing. And the last thing I want to mention to you is people close to you. See, we spend a lot of time with our friends and our family. And indeed, I hope today a lot of you have romantic partners and really good, strong relationships. And they heavily influence our self-esteem. You know, people in your life who are supportive, are supposed to be supportive. Do they build you up or do they drag you down? Do they help contribute to you having this healthy self-image of your self-esteem? Are they making you feel inadequate? If the people in your life have a negative influence, please communicate to them to be more supportive, to set healthy boundaries. Good, healthy relationships is about having that conversation. You should be able to have that communication about setting healthy boundaries. Let them know that you want to be in a supportive relationship with people who uplift you. Make an effort to help you seek friendships, to help you achieve your goals, all of those things. And this, I might be preaching to the converted here today, but that's something that's really, really important, because impaired self-esteem hinders our ability to speak up about our wants and our needs. So if you are prepared to speak, if you are setting boundaries, you're doing one of the things that for me underlines healthy self-esteem, because people with impaired self-esteem find it difficult to speak up for what they want, to share their feelings, to put in place those boundaries. So that's one of the things that we need to be thinking about today, even before we go in to start looking at some of the strategies. So before we start, we're going to look at the first one today around emotions. Okay, for me, emotions and being able to manage and deal with our emotions is critical to our confidence and self-esteem. Listen, before we start, there's a couple of things for me that I just want to say to people, and this is some of the stuff that I shared, and I'll be honest, this may not sound very blokey or manly in inverted commas. So if there's any gents out there today, listen, let me give you a rest assurance. Keeping a journal or a diary is not something that takes away your manhood, if that's something you're worried about. A journal or a diary about you and what you're doing and your goals and your achievements. And there's many different journals out there. I'm not going to recommend one. I'm more than happy to send you over some of the stuff that I've used in the past. But one of the big things that helps with your confidence and your self-esteem is to get into that journaling and diary, to record how you felt that day, to record what you did that day, to question some of the things about life. Did that day help you work towards your goals? So we don't do this self-reflection very well. So this is critical for me. It's one of those cornerstones. I don't mind how you do it. You know, if one of your cornerstones of life to confidence and self-esteem is to have a good body, that your body looks well and it feels well, you might use photographs. Okay, you might take photographs of yourself. Some of us may need a planner as to how we're going to grow our confidence. What are we going to do to raise our self-esteem? That might be something you do. All of these things work together, or you can use them singly. Some of us need a good critical friend. Dare I say it, somebody who can give us that wee boot in the backside when we need it, when somebody who you can be open and talk to. Again, I hope this might be in your intimate relationships, but if it's not, it could be a best friend, or it could be somebody you have yet to meet on that journey and trying to repair your self-esteem and build your confidence. Again, that's really important to have somebody that you can share that with. And sometimes we need that appraisal process. Now, again, I'm sure many of you work in different places where appraisal is used in the workplace. I'm not talking about that type of appraisal, but it comes from that idea of reflecting on what we have done today. And this is where the diary and the journal is very important, where we look at, you know, if we've set out goals for the day, if we've set out things that we wanted to achieve this week, what happens is when we achieve these things, when we can actually visually see those things happening, when we can tick them off our list, then we move that into our conscious awareness. We see that for what it is. Most of us do a lot of these things and we're not aware of it. And then whenever somebody brings it their attention that we've done well or we've achieved something, we either don't ignore it, or we don't accept it. It's a thing called imposter syndrome, and we'll talk a little bit about that, as I said, in our final week. But this appraisal process, how do we know, how can we convince ourselves that we are moving forward with our goals, with our achievements? Because that in itself builds confidence and indeed some self-esteem. You are not born with confidence. You must create it. You ever jumped out of bed in a fantastic mood and had the entire day go your way? How about the opposite? How you feel is the direct result of your state of mind. If you're perpetually stressed and anxious, you're going to be living in a depressed or anxious state every waking moment. And during times like this, you may feel like you can't do anything right. Your confidence will take a direct hit. But if you constantly feel gratitude and love and joy, you're going to be living in an amazing, positive state. I'm going to talk about that. You'll move through your day with purpose. You'll move through your day with completing your tasks with enthusiasm, and you'll build confidence and self-esteem on the way. This is all part of our learning how to believe in yourself, and a skill that fits hand in glove with learning how to be confident. So confidence is not something you are born with. Confidence is something you must create, not other people, but you have to create that for yourself. And one of the ways in which we can do this is through building confidence through managing our emotions. See, humans have a unique and incredible capacity to experience a wide range of emotions. But if you let your emotions dictate your experience of life without pinpointing why you feel a particular way, your emotions will control you over time. And this affects how you feel every day. It affects your confidence. And importantly, it affects your self-esteem. I'm going to ask somebody, can we control our emotions? Can we? Let's see who's there. I'm going to ask Leah there, Lee or Leanne. Can we control our emotions? Can we?
I don't think you can control your emotions, but you can control what you do with them, I suppose.
Okay, you can't control them, but you can control what you do with them. Okay, that's interesting. Anybody else?
I suppose we can control how we respond.
Okay, we can control how we respond. Okay, now I'm gonna ask you to have a think about this today. Your feelings are within your control. The truth is that you're completely in control of your emotions. Okay. I see James there. James, give us all a big smile. James, give us all a smile. Now, did anybody smile back at James? Did anybody feel different whenever James smiled? Okay. Listen, I'm going to break something to you this morning. Emotions are something that are very difficult to control, but look at the things that actually change our emotional state. Okay, James, a lovely smile. He gives a smile this morning, and everybody, for a mere second, you may have been worried about something, stressed about something, thinking about work. It's 20 to 1, I might need to get back. Okay, but for a mere second, James gave us all a smile. And for many of us, that changed our emotional state. It had changed how we felt, maybe in that moment of life. Not in the future, not in the past, but in the moment that we're experiencing here today. James's smile may not have meant something to us if we were locked in the past. James's smile may not have meant much to us if we're locked in the future, but what James's smile did for us is it brought us back to the present moment. If I asked you all to think this morning about your hearts, anybody thought about their heart beating this morning? Anybody thought about breathing while we've been here today? No, you see, there's this myth that we cannot control our mind. Our mind is not supposed to be controlled. Our mind is not supposed to be controlled. But what happens is our deeper us taps into our mind when we need to take control. A great story about a lady in America. Her child was trapped under a car. I'm sure she went through all the fears. This has happened and what could happen to her child. But in that moment, she was able to channel everything that she had to lift that car off her child. And what it shows you is that our brain, our thoughts, our emotions and everything will go like anybody drives a car. We get home at night. We don't know how the heck we get home, but we're home. Our systems are like that car, that automatic car. We are designed to run and function. But there's also a deeper us inside us that whenever we need to take control of this system that Mother Earth has given us, or God, or whatever you believe in, or maybe you don't believe in anything, and that's equally fine. But there's something in us that's deeper that allows us to connect with our heart, with our brain. I've asked you all to take a big deep breath this morning, a nice big breath in and out. What we've done is we have taken that reclaim. We have come back and said we are taking over our breathing. Okay. So confidence comes from this reclaiming our emotions. Okay. I know we've got 15 minutes here. I don't want to go into this too deep, but this is a great diagram that shows just exactly what happens us when we have an event. So we're all on here today, and as part of that event, we're all going to be having thoughts. Melanie will be having thoughts, Leanne will have thoughts, everybody on here today will have certain thoughts. They may be shared thoughts, maybe thoughts that come, oh, another Zoom meeting, oh, there are things that are happening in your past. Some of us may go, you know, it was great last week, looking forward to getting on. We'll all have different and shared thoughts. So the one thing we can't control is our thoughts. We're not designed to control our thoughts, and actually, depending on what you believe in, you'll find that a lot of our thoughts come from the people around us. They come from being in a certain environment. They maybe come through past experience, whatever you've been taught at school, whatever your parents have told you. You cannot, I've never met anybody yet, maybe a Buddhist monk that spent hundreds and thousands of hours being able to quiet the mind, but most of us living in society cannot control our thoughts. If I asked you all to stop thinking today, and all I want you to do is not to think about the pink elephant. Nobody think about the pink elephant. Honestly, do not think about it. You'll find your brain will find a way to think about the pink elephant. So we are not in control of our thoughts. Our emotions are our petrol in life. Now, if we're looking at petrol and diesel at the minute, that's quite expensive, but actually something that's more lucrative to ourselves is our emotions. Our emotions are our secret elixir of life. It's what brings thought into action. I'm sure we've all thought of being millionaires. We've all thought of having a nice life. We've all thought of maybe being a tango dancer. We watch the Strictly on a Saturday night. We go, do you know what? I'd love to do that. Why doesn't it happen? It doesn't happen because we never give it enough emotion. It's just a thought. It comes and it goes and it passes. And how we can control this process, folks, is very simple. We could talk about it all day, but the simplicity of it is very easy if kept at a very basic level. It's only when people try to turn this into some secret myth or try to monopolize or maybe make a money out of this process is we have an internal memory. So no matter when we have a thought, we'll have an emotion to that thought. It could be part of our culture, it could be part of our upbringing. But if I was to bring out a nice little mouse this morning and let it go across the room, many of us just do at least on, we go, oh, wait, get it back in the box. But that's always going to happen. The thought and the emotion of that mouse is based on an internal memory, because this has obviously happened before. Same for people who fly and scared of flying or snakes. And actually how we control our emotions is very simple. We must control our behavior and our action. And our behavior and action is controlled on our values. Our behavior and action is controlled by our values. If we think it's okay, if he was here today and the mouse ran out and she was sitting at home, she'd probably get up off the chair and scream. If it was to take her to Buckingham Palace and she's sitting in front of the Queen and the mouse ran out, she might feel the urge just to sit and suck it up and go, I'm maybe not jumping up because the environment's changed. Now, I'm not saying that, but I'm giving you an example of our behavior and our reaction to our emotion is based on our internal memory. We have the ability to control our physical and our behavioral reaction. And by controlling our action and our behavior, we thus change our response to the emotion, and thus our emotional change to the thought. There's a great blind experiment done by Chinese and American scientists during the Cold War, where they put a group of American people in their room and showed them gory images. And then they put somebody in to assess them to see what those outcomes, their emotions and behavior to those thoughts were. It didn't change. They did it with the Chinese people. First, when they were there on their own, their behavior and physical reaction was exactly the same as those of the Americans. But when they put somebody in the room, something changed quite differently. Was that they all of a sudden didn't show any emotional behavior. The actions that they displayed first, when there was nobody watching, changed when somebody was put in the room. And because part of Chinese culture is that you do not display your emotions. Okay, you do not display your emotions. So once they knew they were being watched, they were able to change this process. And what it taught us is when we talk about confidence and self-esteem, why this is so important for me, folks, is that most of our confidence and self-esteem is built around our action and behavior to our emotional responses. If you're going to be a good leader, we talk about emotional intelligence. We talk about being a good parent. You need to be in touch, empathize with the emotions of your kids. This actually is exactly the same response that we need whenever we think about our confidence and self-esteem. So the things that are causing our self-esteem and our confidence to go below are, again, I don't like using that word, impaired. Requires us to do one very simple thing. And this is the cornerstone piece. Because it doesn't matter what books you read. It doesn't matter about what self-help videos you go and watch. It doesn't matter about having goals and achievements that are going to build your confidence. Because if you cannot check your emotions to thoughts, then your thoughts and your emotions are always going to dominate and be integral to what your confidence and self-esteem are. Because if emotions are constantly pulling you down, that will then in turn pull your confidence and your self-esteem. Because how we view ourselves, as Leanne said at the start, self-esteem is based on our understanding, our view of oneself. One of our big strengths that we can have in life is to be able to not to be emotional. And I don't mean, I'm probably one of the most emotional people you meet. Displaying emotions is really important. But understanding why and ensuring that that emotion is displayed, not because of internal memory, not because of something in your past, not because of something in your future, or not because of your thoughts. You're in control of where you put that emotion. Because if you want to be confident, if you want to have self-esteem, core confidence and self-esteem comes with having a understanding of how you use that petrol or that diesel, whatever car you drive. Your choice is where you put that. That's your secret sauce to life. If you put it in all the wrong places, if I get into a fight today with Leanne and Leanne goes off crying and spends the next 3 days spending her life feeling miserable, she's now no longer growing and developing and moving on life. All of her energy, which is her emotion, is now being put into something which is pulling her backwards. So first thing for me is be very careful. Be very careful today and about where you are putting your emotion. How do we master our emotions? We do it in 6 ways. We identify what we are feeling. We then acknowledge and appreciate the emotion that comes with that feeling. Let's get curious about the message the emotion suggests to us. And curiosity doesn't mean we get led by it, but curiosity means we do give time to look at it. We don't get led by it, but we experience what that emotion is in the moment. And we get confidence out of it because we understand that we can handle this emotion. This emotion is a power source that's given to us. We then choose whether we want to use it. We choose when we're going to use it. If anybody's ever played in a sport, I hate this old analogy where people used to say, just suck it up. Well, sucking it up's okay, but if you suck it up for too long, that energy has to come out somewhere. And you've maybe seen in sports and stuff, people are able to use that nervous energy and put that energy into maybe being able to run quicker, maybe being able to see out the last 5 minutes of a game. And really, there's no difference in that. And what people are doing is they're channeling that emotional energy, they're channeling that petrol to be used at a time which they can put it to good use. And importantly for me today, folks, if you're going to build core confidence and core self-esteem, learning to be able to take that emotional energy, which triggers in an environment, whether it be the workplace or at home. Yes, you've got to let it out, but understanding that's your energy. Nothing ever comes into form, nothing ever changes, nothing grows if you're using that energy source in something which is pulling you down, or using it in other ways. I'll share this little slide with you online. But here's something I want to just finish on today with you. See, for me, the best way to handle an emotion is when you first begin to feel it and experience it in its full. That way it won't keep popping up over time. It won't keep coming up time and time and time again. Some of the things that I did over my years was these things called power emotions. Anybody ever heard of Tony Robbins? So Tony Robbins uses some of these in the Unleash the Power Within. But today, when we talk about confidence and self-esteem, I want you to think about these, your emotions and your spirit as the ultimate garden. And when we have a garden, and I know some of you may have a garden and you like your gardening, what you do is you ensure a bountiful and nourishing harvest. And what you do is you plant those seeds with warmth and love and appreciation. I am fortunate to live in Banbridge, and if anybody knows, there's a little place in Banbridge that the sunflower fields, and you've maybe seen it coming up all over Facebook this summer. They're the biggest sunflowers that have ever been grown. They're some of the best sunflowers that have ever been seen. I talked to people who were there that day from a competition, and they travel all over the world coming to look at sunflowers. And it got me thinking actually about some of the things that I talk to people about. There's a secret behind why those sunflowers are some of the best in the world. Because they're not for sale. They're not for sale. That field was planted because of two mothers and a lot of children who wanted to remember a father, an uncle, and a dear friend. And his legacy was that he wanted a field of sunflowers planted each year, and the money would go towards the Northern Ireland Air Ambulance and another charity. Those seeds are planted every year with love and warmth and appreciation. That's why they grow for me into some of the best sunflowers. How do we ensure we plant good emotional seeds that help us bring fulfillment, abundance, confidence, self-esteem, and importantly, get us away from these negative emotions? Okay. First one's gratitude. Listen, gratitude for me is the single greatest power to change your life. It'll change both your confidence and your self-esteem. It actually leads into core confidence. Spiritual leaders and philosophers all over the world credit a happier life to gratitude. It is an immensely powerful force. If we use it correctly, it'll expand our happiness, it'll expand our love and relationships, it'll expand your health, it'll expand your confidence and your self-esteem. See, when we're grateful, fear disappears and abundance appears. One of the other big things is hunger. In a recent article, actually, Tony Robbins wrote, he said, if somebody asked him what is the single most valuable secret to success and confidence, he said it was hunger. Hunger is a secret ingredient to, I'd like to tell you that every leader I've ever worked with had hunger. They just don't. Okay, hunger is something that creates lasting value in the world, and you have to have this hunger and appetite for the want to have core confidence, the want to have to grow your self-esteem. Most of us lose that hunger in life, but it's one of the most valuable things in terms of confidence, self-esteem, and indeed success. Because if we're successful, we grow confidence and we grow self-esteem. Passion is the force that awakens you. Passion blows the lid off your imagination, your capability, and your drive. It's energy. It allows you to connect with yourself. It shakes your mind free. It shakes it free from limiting beliefs, the things that you've maybe grew up in life, your culture, your learning. And it breaks down all of the old patterns of thinking. Passion reawakes you. No special isms here today. If you want confidence and self-esteem, they're high energies. I'll show you the little scale. I mean, we could go back to this again, but if you want to have high energies, passion, look where passion sits, in that top left-hand quadrant of the emotional scale. Passion, enthusiasm, optimism. Those things are high frequency. That's where confidence and self-esteem sits in there. So if we want to have good confidence, good self-esteem, then we have to learn how to reawaken this passion, this excitement, because it gives us a sense of purpose. I think it was Benjamin Disraeli paraphrased this. He says, man or woman is only truly great when he or she acts from passion. So are we using that energy? Are we using that emotional energy toward and using it for things that we're passionate about? Love and warmth. The consistent expression of love and warmth can melt away negative emotions. It doesn't have to be people. Some of us have pets. Some of us maybe aren't people's people, but we're dog lovers, we're cat lovers, okay? That love and warmth between ourselves, we recognize that whether you are met with an expression of love or a cry for help, if that intent is positive, then again, that reawakens that power emotion within us. Curiosity is really important. If you really want to grow in life, if you really want to grow confidence and self-esteem, let's be curious as a child. It's drilled out of us. It's gone. Children know how to wander. They know how to marvel at things. They know how to look at the sky. Most of us are grilled down by routine. Go back to society. What does society do for confidence and self-esteem? One of the things that batters us with is we get rid of our curiosity. If you're curious or you think outside the box, you might be even called a conspiracist in this day and age. If you think outside the box, if you're curious, if you're prepared to lift a stone and look under it, can't think about what society. See, if you're curious, you'll never be bored. And if you're never bored, your confidence and self-esteem, your own self-esteem is that life, there'll always be something coming next. So when you're curious, nothing's a chore. We have to be flexible. Flexibility is really important to us. Some of us did get upset. Some of us found difficulty in COVID. Others thrived during COVID because it changed the world. It changed the laws of the jungle. It's one of those guarantees of success, confidence and self-esteem. You'll never find core confidence and self-esteem in being rigid or bureaucratic. They're great things to have. They're important things to have, but you must be able to, what I would call, be flexible in your vision and sometimes stubborn on the detail. You need to be stubborn on how you're going to get something done. Says it was Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon, says most of us are stubborn on our vision. We're flexible on detail. To drive core confidence and self-esteem, we have to be flexible sometimes on our vision, but we have to be stubborn sometimes in how we're going to get there. Okay. Confidence is in there. When you're confident, you're willing to experience the power of anything. Unshakable confidence, this core confidence, provides you with the certainty that you need. Okay, that confidence in yourself. Cheerfulness is very important too. Being cheerful means you live life in a state of pleasure. Okay, one that's intense. Ask James Roy there to give us a smile. We know how important that is to us as people, that connection. Last couple for me is vitality. See, vitality is our energy. It's our life force. Your mental or emotional state starts with your energy level. Do anybody remember when you were a kid and you'd run about and splash in the muddy puddles and you'd look at the sky and you'd feel life is all full of purpose, and then all of a sudden you go out on a Sunday afternoon as a 30-year-old and if you splash in the puddles, people start to look at you like there's something wrong. But think about, I'm not telling you to go out today and start jumping in the muddy puddles, but I'm asking you to go out today and reconnect with the world, reconnect with that vitality of just getting up every day and full of life. Don't let your work define you. Don't let your family and the people around you define you. They're important components of life. Your vitality comes from that ability to nearly connect and reconnect with, remember the stuff when you were a child. your dreams, your hopes, your visions, the jumping in the puddles. Because vitality is a source of energy to your psychology. And your psychology is ultimately how you see yourself. And as Leanne rightly stated at the start, your self-esteem is based on how you see yourself. And this last one is really, really important for me. How I restored my confidence and self-esteem, how I repaired it, was through this sense of contribution. See, only those for me who have learned the power of sincere and selfless contribution experience life's deepest joy, true fulfillment. True fulfillment is at the top of the energy scale. Everything else trickles down from it. So if every day you can feel that you're doing something to add something not only to your life, but to the life of other people. See, we need a purpose, folks. Lots of our self-esteem and our confidence is when we're not answering our purpose in life. And that's where we're going to come to next week. If there's no richer emotion for me than the sense that you as a person have done something or said something or added something to somebody else's life who you care about, perhaps someone you don't even know. James Roy was kind enough to give us all a smile today. That may have been the first smile that some of us have experienced for a long time. James, your sense of contribution today, you may never know what that smile might have done to people. See, that's really important, folks. Your confidence in your self-esteem is based on your sense of contribution. It's part and parcel of your purpose in life. There's three things I always say in life, what we're trying to do, and I'll finish on this. We all want autonomy. We all want to be able to go off and experience the world and the richness of what it has. It's very difficult to do. We all want to have some sort of mastery in life. We want to know that what we're doing, we can get better at. And the last one for me is after, when we have our autonomy and our mastery, is we have to have a purpose. We have to have a purpose in life. And that's where we will kick on in week 3. One of the big ones for me around your confidence and self-esteem is discovering yourself. You cannot build core confidence and core self-esteem if one has not discovered themselves. It's a journey, but it's a journey that if you're not plugged into, it doesn't matter, again, how many books you read, how many videos. I finished this. I used to work with a lot of politicians over the years. They used to say, Ed, can you write me a speech on this or that? Or, do you know, I would really love to be able to speak like Obama. I used to say, listen, the one thing you'll never be able to do is speak like Obama, because if you've discovered yourself, you'll realize that you're not Obama. So I'll write a speech which emanates out from you and what it says about you, not what it says about somebody who has been a good speaker. So we'll pick up there next week on 2 things we're going to look at. We're going to look at discovering yourself, and we're going to challenge this old ethos of focusing on your weakness. And we're going to learn some stuff around how do we double down on our strengths. Let's start working on our strengths. Let's start bringing them out. You're never too old to bring those strengths back. They may have been hidden or battered or put to the backbone. But we're 2 things next week: discover yourself and double down on your strengths. And again, we'll see how those things pull out into our core confidence and our core self-esteem. So listen, we've just went over a few minutes. Sorry, but we're not too far away. So thank you for today. Any questions or any things anybody wants to talk about? I'll be here for a while too. So I know if people have to get off with work, great. If you want to stay on for a few minutes. Sorry, Shannon, I know that means you as well, but if anybody has anything they want to talk about, please, happy enough to stay on for a few minutes afterwards and let people get about their day. Okay, thank you.
Brilliant, Edward. Thank you so much. Definitely there, a sense of contribution from you. That's amazing. I love your metaphors. I think they're just so useful. It must be because I'm a visual learner, but they're brilliant. The only thing we're missing is a cup of tea and being in a room, I think, together.
I have mine here, but I never got a chance.
You didn't get a sip. But yeah, if anyone has any questions or comments, fire away there. And we will stick around here, but if anyone does have to go, that is no worries, and we will see you next week. And I'll send out the slideshows at the end of the 4 weeks, and I'll send out the recordings to whoever has missed or had to leave early, if you just give me a wee email. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Edward. That was great. I need to skip.
Thank you. It's not I'm picking on you, it's just when I see people with cameras on, I tend,
I know, but I just think I would hate to be you looking at a whole lot of blank boxes. I kind of think.
oh, listen, I know people are at home and stuff as well, so.
Anyway, okay. Thanks a lot.
listen,
Bye.
thanks, Leanne.
There you go, Edward.
Just in case anybody wanted to ask.
That's it. You just don't know. Some people do. And I think it's start. No, I'm just going to say